Hello, everyone. Thank you for joining us. We are trying to get our link to Facebook set up. So we will start to stream on Facebook and then we will go live right at noon. Thank you for being with us.
Hey, Samantha, do you know if anybody from the board is on today? Oh, you're on mute. Sorry.
You would think after a year I would get it. Dave is in and Roberta is in.
Excellent. Good deal.
Sabine, are you nervous? You shouldn't.
No, I don't think so. Are you? You're not nervous.
No, I'm not nervous. Maybe I should be.
No. No reason to be.
If you were just joining us, we are getting our Facebook Live together, and then we will go live right at noon. Thank you for being here.
Rebecca, I think you and I need to take a trip to Quito for business.
You're a question here. Yes.
Rebecca, I don't know if we've met already in Louisville. Last year on January, I was part of the ILVP visitors from the U.S. Senate. I don't know if we met in your office.
I don't know if I was there. You may have met Janine Duncliffe if it wasn't Sabine.
No,
I don't remember.
I don't think I remember meeting a group from South America at all.
No, I was part of this international visitors leaders program, and we were only two, one from Colombia and me, and the other ones were from Europe and from Asia.
Did you talk to the mayor?
No.
Okay.
Did you get a tour of UPS, Carlos?
I'm sorry?
Did you take a tour of UPS?
No.
No, okay. There was a delegation that came through UPS, and I thought
We'll
maybe
figure it out.
Mm-hmm.
Hi, everyone. We're just trying to figure out all the connections between our panelists and our moderator right now. We're having some technical difficulties with Facebook. It looks like Zoom has changed up its policies, and I would not like to live stream to my personal page. So we will edit our recording and place it on our Facebook page after the fact. So thank you all for joining us today. As you know, as we are holding our third Sister Cities Lunch and Learn. As you may know, the World Affairs Council of Kentucky and Southern Indiana has recently taken over Sister Cities of Louisville programming. We're excited to grow our Sister Cities programs and develop new paths of engagement and learning with all 9 of our sister cities. This Lunch and Learn series grew out of a desire to connect on a deeper level with each of our sister cities on issues of global importance. We're thankful for the Metro Office for Globalization for their support. And we're so glad you're here today for our discussion on downtown revitalization between Louisville, Kentucky and Quito, Ecuador. My name is Samantha Risen, and I'm the Global Educations Program Coordinator at the World Affairs Council of Kentucky and Southern Indiana. WAC is a hub for international exchange, dialogue, and learning located in Louisville, Kentucky. We facilitate a variety of international, professional, and youth exchanges, like the one Carlos was just speaking about, speaker programs, and educational opportunities for the Kentuckiana region year-round. Before we begin, I'll just give you a quick rundown of our program. The webinar is being recorded. We will edit that recording and share it on our Facebook page just as soon as we are able to. Our moderator and panelist will hold a 45-minute discussion After that, we'll go into an audience Q&A. Keep in mind, you can submit questions at any time during the program using the Q&A box. I'll collect them and we'll answer as many as possible in the time allowed. Today, we are excited to welcome Carlos, excuse me. Oh goodness, I'm so sorry. Give me one second. Choking on my air there, I'm so sorry. Today, we're excited to welcome Carlos Zaldombidi and Rebecca Fleischaker as our panelists to discuss downtown revitalization in Quito and Louisville. We're so thankful you have taken the time to speak with us today. I also have the pleasure of introducing Sabine Nassim. She's the director of the Office for Globalization for Louisville Metro, and she will serve as our moderator today. Sabine joined the Office for Globalization as an experienced leader and public servant with over 15 years working in various roles related to community development. Prior to her role with the Office for Globalization, she served as the UPS Air Regional Public Affairs and Community Relations Supervisor, the primary field representative and liaison for the UPS Foundation. Prior to UPS, she worked at Berea College in Eastern Kentucky as the Associate Executive Director Chief Academic Officer, promoting the vision of Partners for Education as a member of their senior leadership team. Prior to that, she has held a variety of positions within the Jefferson County Public School System. We're delighted to have Sabine serve on our board and chair the Sister Cities Committee. In her role at the Office for Globalization, she's been able to focus on her passion for cultivating economic, educational, and cultural opportunities that foster meaningful connections among diverse community members and promote a welcoming agenda for all within the city of Louisville. We're so grateful to have her as a moderator. I'll now pass it over to her to introduce our panelists, Rebecca from Louisville and Carlos from Quito.
Thanks, Samantha. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Sabine Nassim, as Samantha introduced me, so it's a pleasure to have everybody here. Thanks again for taking the time out. So I'm going to go ahead. I have the pleasure of introducing Rebecca Fleischaker. Rebecca is the Director and Co-Chief of the Department of Rebecca is the Director for Economic Development and the Co-Chief for Louisville Forward. She has worked in various economic development and communication roles with city government, including the Office of the Mayor and Cabinet for Community Development since 2000. She began her career in public service in Washington, D.C., working as a staff assistant for the U.S. Senate Select Committee on Ethics. Rebecca has been with Louisville Forward since it was formed in 2014 and has helped build the new organization. She has managed several successful economic development projects, including the landing of Computershare's regional headquarters in Louisville with a subsequent expansion, ISCO's expansion to a downtown location, and the expansion of Heine Brothers Coffee and FMS headquarters, which moved to West Louisville. Rebecca earned her BA in psychology from Miami University in Ohio and her master's in public policy and administration from the University of Kentucky's Martin School. Thanks, Rebecca, for joining us. Carlos is the Executive Director of Quito Chamber of Commerce and the General Secretary of the International Chamber of Commerce Ecuador chapter. Currently, he chairs the Hemispheric Congress of the Latin Chamber of Commerce in the United States. For more than 15 years, he has led companies in the agro-industrial sector and international representations of products and services. During his professional career, he has been part of national and international business directories, in addition to belonging to the boards of important guilds in Ecuador. He's an active partner of several companies in different sectors related to foreign trade, consulting, and services. He actively advises various ventures in order to boost the country's economy. Welcome, Carlos. Thanks for being here. So let's go ahead and get started on some of these questions. We're focusing on revitalization and specific to downtown revitalization. We've just come through and we're at the hopefully the tail end of the pandemic, at least for Louisville. We're already getting vaccinations in, and we're now working on reestablishing that economy. But I'd like to ask you, and I'm going to go with Rebecca first, what does downtown revitalization mean to you or for the city of Louisville?
It means a lot of things. I really appreciate that question because especially after a year of office workers going home and small businesses struggling to be able to serve those employees and downtown residents, there's a lot of recovery to do. And so it does mean reviving, bringing people back to work. Obviously, the residents want to have services and things to do. It also means, hopefully, with federal guidance and local guidance, that we can have events and bring people together in a very safe way, as well as just making sure that our streets are safe. There's so many things that go into just the word revitalization, and it's a multi-pronged approach, as well as making sure that activists who want to be able to voice their concerns, and I don't think that Quito probably experiences like we did here, with basically in response to police killings of Black individuals in the US, but it has been another part of what we're doing in our work around downtown revitalization.
Great. Thanks, Rebecca. Carlos, I'm going to go ahead and send that same question over to you. I know Quito's been doing some revitalization for some time now, but with the pandemic and economic downturn, I'm curious to know, what does downtown revitalization mean for you and for Quito?
First of all, thank you for the invitation. And I wanted to say that I promise you that when I talk in Spanish, I seem smarter than talking in English. But I'll do my best in my English. Well, the Quito downtown is the core of the city. And since September the 7th of 1977, it was declared the first UNESCO World Humanities Cultural Heritage. And you know why I have that date so marked in my life? Because it's my birthday. Oh. So we have 43 years of being the first humanities cultural heritage. The problem of this downtown in Quito is that we have all the public offices inside it. And why I said it's a problem, because since October of 2019, many political problems are occurring in Quito, in Ecuador. And since the president's office is inside the downtown, many people go in strikes to fight the president, and during that the strikes, they damage all this heritage we have, this cultural and infrastructural, architectural heritage. So we are trying to revitalize the Quito downtown via having more tourism, more hotels, more businesses inside. So we, in a couple of years, we are planning to take out the president's office from the downtown to other part of the city, because we have to protect it. So what we need is to give a little bit more of liquidity to these small businesses, so they can at least remain functioning, and then become to increase. Because we have, for example, we have like old craftsmen working inside the Quito downtown, because Quito downtown is not only architectural heritage, it's a cultural heritage. So all what's happening around the infrastructure is what we are trying to revitalize via a lot of projects that we are right now working inside the Quito's downtown.
Thank you, Carlos. And actually, that's a great segue into another question I had. Quito, you mentioned Quito is the first city to be designated a UNESCO World Heritage Site, while Louisville's downtown has been, it has dotted with national historic landmarks and local preservation districts as well. And so, how do we keep that balance of preserving that cultural heritage, but still needing that modernization? How does that influence of redevelopment and revitalization, for that cultural heritage that's already there? And I'll take it over to Carlos first, and then we'll bounce it back to Rebecca.
I think that the correct balance is when, for example, we have a new project right now with a couple of big businessmen here in Quito, which is called let's go back to the downtown. In Spanish, de vuelta al centro, right? So this project, what's trying to do is to take advantage of a new metro. We are the first city in Ecuador to have metro. Quito is going to be the first one, and in the central square of Quito downtown, which is the core and which the city was birthed. It's called San Francisco Square. So there's where in 1534 the city was founded, and that's going to be the only stop of the metro in all the downtown. So what we are doing, we're going to take advantage of that metro stop and to work in 9 squares around, working with hotels, restaurants, businesses. So the perfect balance is going to be in between protecting the cultural heritage and making all the businesses around to become more better business, so they can grow, but grow around the culture and grow around protecting all the heritage around them. So I think the break even, it's possible to have it in between protecting and growing the economy of the businesses.
It takes a bit of innovation and creativity. That's great. Thank you for sharing. Rebecca, you want to comment on that?
Sure. Louisville's probably a couple hundred years younger than Quito, but we do have what we call old buildings and architecture. And I really do think that our architecture does make up part of our cultural heritage. In downtown, at least, we had an effort in the late 90s to, when we were redoing streetscapes, what's now Museum Row, to fix up facades of buildings. That part of that effort was also to put markers in the ground of what those buildings originally were built as, and remember the history of where we came from and where we started. So you may be walking down Main Street going into a meeting in an office with a law firm that used to be a bourbon manufacturer. And I think that culture for Louisville, which is completely different than what Quito has done as a UNESCO World Heritage Site, reminds us of where we've come from and why it's important to know your history, that this city is bigger than just us and that we have something to protect. And I do think that there's an economic development message in that, because businesses who want to redevelop and save an older building get a lot more value for their physical facility because of that. And we were kind of lucky. So in the 70s and 80s, when a lot of cities were tearing down older buildings to make way for newer buildings, we didn't have the money to do that. So we have a lot of old bones that are beautiful. And over the last several decades, we have invested in those older architectural gems. And I do think that makes a big difference in the way our city looks. And I'm not going to compare it to other cities, but there's just more charm, in my opinion, and it's more authentic to where you are, not just a tower or a multi blocks of towers, that you know that you're in Louisville.
Yeah. Thanks, Rebecca. And actually, I'm going to ask you this question first before we move on to a different one, just so that we can set some context for this other question, because we were talking about this, the cultural heritage of each of our cities. And I know that Louisville goes back to we have so many different statues and structures that honor a number of people in history that were pretty important to the creation or the establishment of Louisville. But there's been something different going on with those statues recently. And so can you talk a little bit about that and around the equity piece? Is that a factor in revitalization efforts and why those statues being affected?
Sure. So we're very lucky in terms of, this is a little offshoot of what you just said, Sabine. We have neighborhoods that are still named after the ethnic origin of where people came from. Germantown, Irish Hill, Paristown. We also have Butchertown. If that could be any nationality, people were butchers. And I, as well as not only names of neighborhoods, but there are public art and statues that also represent some of our history. And some of that history, to your point, represents or honors people who weren't what we deem socially acceptable or ethical now. So if there were slave owners, people who were racist, who spoke out against Black people or any other ethnicity. We have, I mean, there's racists against Irish that was in Louisville way back when. And it is something that we are facing. We've been talking about this probably for the last 5 years. The mayor started an initiative called Lean Into Louisville, where we can really think about our history, what the tough history is, not that we Rebecca and Sabine are guilty of, but that is still shown and represented in public ways that we may need to think differently about. And we did actually remove a statue of General Castleman, who, after serving in the Civil War on the South, which is the losing side, did head up our Parks Department and created a wonderful legacy in our natural environment. A lot of what's the word, just good and bad around him, and whether or not this was a statue that should be in our public right of way. And we ended up coming down on the side of it should not. He was a slaveholder. He did actually fight for the South, and I think when he came back was censured by the president at the time. And that statue has gone to rest in a very nice cemetery called Cave Hill Cemetery, where there is a lot of historic statuary. Very appropriate that it's there. We didn't want to take away or dismantle the statue, but just not in a highlighted public space. That actually followed a less public removal of a statue, George Prentice, who I think was Courier Journal editor, who wrote editorials that it would not be acceptable in today's day. And that was removed several years ago and moved to another city that did want it. So that is something that we are talking about. It's controversial because it is history at the same time as how we want to be, reflect ourselves into the world.
Thanks, Rebecca. Appreciate that. Carlos, is equity a factor in those revitalization efforts in Quito? And if so, how?
Yeah, as I already told you, we have this project, but we need the adoption from some companies or businessmen so they can have any like business interest, so they can save the culture and the heritage of Quito downtown. I think that the government, the local government, is not in a financial position to help with resources or financial resources to help to take this type of projects and to make the culture around the downtown to be better. So definitely businessmen are always seeking to have a good equity result. So I think that in this case, the private sector is going to work together to help to take out all the problems that we have in Quito's downtown, and then project it for the next 5 to 10 years, project this downtown to be like a very touristic downtown in which all of the actors, all of the stakeholders are going to have a better equity result. So we were investigating, for example, what's happening in other cities like Cusco or Ciudad de Mexico, where the downtowns are completely digitalized, completely full of innovation businesses, and because of that, they became very touristic and very safe places to be. So I think we have a lot of things to think all together to make a good project around the downtown in Quito in this case.
Great. Thanks, Carlos. Appreciate that. Rebecca, I'm just going to mention that Louisville Mayor Greg Fisher, so our mayor, announced the creation of the Downtown Revitalization Team during his annual State of the City address, noting that downtown is the heart of Louisville and a vibrant, healthy downtown is essential for any thriving city. So who are those stakeholders that are working as part of this team? Because I know you're spearheading a lot of those efforts. And what projects are in development through these efforts that you can share with us?
Sure. I'm really excited about this. If there were ever a time for downtown to be highlighted and taken care of, it is now, just simply because of what has happened over the past year all over the world with downtowns. It's a commerce center. It's a community center where people come together to celebrate and mourn. And it's an entertainment center. So it really is something for everybody. And so all of those people are stakeholders. Whether or not you live or work downtown, I would hope that you would consider yourself a stakeholder. If you live in the suburbs and you want to be connected to a strong city, you have to believe in a strong downtown. Not that downtown is for everybody, but it does create a strong city. And so I do believe that even if you don't go to the opera, it's great that we have the opera. If you don't want to go see a live music concert and be banging around with, 20,000 other people, it's very cool for those 20,000 other people that we have that venue. So to answer your question, this revitalization effort, when we started it, we really were trying to spread the net wide who should be involved in this, because we didn't want it to be the same old people who talk about downtown, who we know already believe in it and support it. We wanted it to be open to people who we have actually heard from who say downtown isn't for them. They don't feel included in downtown. That's really specifically our Black population, younger demographic, 20s-ish. We wanted to include our suburban mayors. So they are mayors of smaller cities within Louisville that are more suburban in nature. And how can they connect themselves to downtown, which is not a normal stakeholder in this group. And we've gotten, I think, 3 or 4 mayors from different suburban cities. And then you have your regular downtown supporters. You've got all your nonprofit organizations, your entertainment venues. And we're doing this in partnership with the Louisville Downtown Partnership. It is an organization that exists to focus on economic development in downtown, as well as keeping streets safe, clean, and they have ambassadors and a clean team and a safety team, so that people can see boots on the ground. They're not police. It's not part of our police department, but they can help give directions. They can help. They sweep the sidewalks. They provide services if you are in need of anything, if you're downtown. And so there's businesses also who have a stake, whether or not they own the building they are in. They are definitely have a strong presence and investment in downtown, and they are also big stakeholders. Right now, our group is almost at 90 people, and that is not even, it could be bigger, but I mean, when you get too big, you don't really get a lot done. We have a steering committee that is 11 people, I think. And each of those steering committee members lead committees, and that is where we are in the process now. And we're working on creating an action plan that will have projects that we can do. And the idea right now is immediate, midterm, and long-term projects. And there are some events that are happening right now. So really what's bubbling up is the need for attention. We need to talk about downtown. It is a good place to come. It is safe. You can have fun. There are businesses that are open. Please come patronize them. And as well as creating more events. And the equity piece of this group really is focused on these events that we create. How can we make sure that everybody feels welcome and that they know they're included? And we want, no matter if you're young or old, no matter if you're Democrat or Republican, no matter if you like country music or hard rock, whatever it is, black or white, we want you to know that this is something for you. And so we're going to be doing some diverse programming in those events, and as well as helping our small businesses so that they can not just survive and make it, but also thrive and hopefully grow.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. And Carlos, you had mentioned that you've already have the train system that's up and running, and you've had a number of over 200 projects in revitalizing Quito. Did you have a process, or did Quito has a process for engaging stakeholders? And if so, what was that process, and who is typically engaged in that, who has a voice in making those changes?
First of all, I have to say that I love to hear Rebecca. You may be a younger city, but definitely you are much more developed than Quito. So I think that we should continue talking, and I love to hear more from you to learn and to make it happen here in Quito too, because we lose one opera program that we used to have years ago that was very, very useful for awakening that feeling of belonging that the citizens should have for their downtown and their city. So regarding your question, we had a program since 2019 with around 200 business around downtown, all type of businesses. We as chamber have it's called it's like a cluster that we make, but it's not from the same type of business. In this case, it was from the same geographical situation, from the downtown. So we had pharmacies, drugstores. We have people who sell electronics, people who have restaurants, people who have hotels. So it was a very diverse cluster in this case, but all of them from the Quito downtown. So what we planned, what we try to make in this project is to, for example, to make one company per month to adopt the Quito downtown. So that company, let's say a big company, a big bank, okay, the Pichincha Bank, which is the biggest bank here in Quito, to adopt 1 month. In 1 month, on those 4 weeks, they put money to make some programs in the San Francisco Square, in the Santo Domingo Square, or in a special street that is only for walking people. So they have to invest every week in a special program to revitalize the Quito downtown and to make people from other parts of the city have the idea to go and visit the Quito downtown, because they have some action, some theaters or some other things. And what they get back, the companies, is that they can brand all the downtown for a month with their brand. So that's the way that we make all the stakeholders, people who work inside the downtown, investors, real estate people that are very, very visionary. So they said, okay, a company is adopting a month, a couple of programs in downtown. This awakes the feeling of belonging of people. People began to return to the downtown, and when they return to downtown, they began thinking, okay, now it's a good time to buy some properties in downtown, to revitalize them, to refix them, and then to sell them in a better place or a better price, or rent it for a better business.
Wow, that's great. So it looks like you had some really good ownership and investment from all of those businesses downtown, and then that innovative way of those others that maybe weren't downtown to partner up with those businesses that adopted the downtown, Quito downtown, for a month. That's great. So, and you mentioned that was in 2019. Well, if we now circle back down to the pandemic in 2020, let's talk a little bit about that. I mean, I'm assuming that there was a loss of retail businesses and conventions, and you mentioned tourism is a huge economic powerhouse as well for Quito. How was that? How did you address that? How are you coming about with that?
Well, it's very difficult in Ecuador. Just to know, 2020, we as a complete economy, we lose about $28 billion. The GDP in Ecuador is 100 billion. So we lose an important part of our GDP because of the pandemic. And the half of that lose of 22 billion, of 28 billion, it's inside Quito city, because it's the capital city and it is the biggest city inside Ecuador. So imagine the affection that the terrible effect that it has on the Quito downtown. No tourists, no international tourists, no visitors, a lot of curfews focused on the people around the Quito downtown. So many businesses. I had an associate of the Chamber of Commerce, 55 years of working, and they're gone right now. They go to bankruptcy like 6 months ago. 55 years working in Quito downtown, and it's over. So the effects of pandemia, the effects of the political strikes and everything that's happening around the Quito downtown, it has put the Quito downtown in a very uncomfortable position, a very difficult economical position. So that's why we as chamber, we as businessmen are getting to get together and to make this type of projects, because we know that the heritage is not possible to we can't make that heritage lose, and we as private sector should do everything that we can to save it.
Great, thank you, Carlos and Rebecca. So along a similar vein, there are folks here on our call that are outside of Louisville. So let's talk a little bit about how our economy here in Louisville, or the downtown economy, has changed since the pandemic. And not only did we have the pandemic, but then we also had that racial justice protests. And Carlos mentioned the political protests too. So it looks like that it was pretty aligned as well. But talk to us a little bit about how our economy has changed here.
Yeah, well, everybody took a hit. I mean, there was nobody that didn't. So downtown, we have about 65,000 employees and they all went home. At some point in last March, they were all told to go home. And a lot of those companies that are business services companies are lucky because their employees were able to work remotely with their technology at home, or they were able to set up their employees with technology at home. It's the small businesses, exactly what Carlos was saying, that were left behind, and the entertainment venues that depend on tourists and employees and people walking around downtown to support these businesses. And these businesses came up simply because there was an audience in downtown. We did run a small business grant program. Specifically, it wasn't specifically for downtown, but it was specifically for small businesses. It was with federal money from the CARES Act, and that we were lucky enough, it was $27 million that we went through, stood up a program pretty quickly and got out that money by the end of November. Well, we got out the agreements to get out the money. And there's reporting, and it's, we're still dealing with some of the very tail end of that program. But the need was so great. We know that small businesses, particularly in downtown, that didn't have that audience, like I said, were suffering even more. We did see some small businesses pivot and try to figure out a different model to make do without people actually walking the street. That pedestrian traffic is so important. It's what makes downtown so special. And if you don't have it, and of course, we've never seen it in our lifetime, that everybody is just basically in place at home, you have to do something else for revenue. So we did see a lot of businesses get creative in terms of what they could do to continue running a business that would still bring in some money. I would say we've lost, I think, less than a dozen downtown businesses that have closed permanently. Some of those weren't doing great before the pandemic, and this just was the kiss of death for them, where they could have held on and tried to work it out. But we are seeing new businesses open, and even, which is interesting to me because we're not out of the pandemic yet. And so there's a sense of hope. There's a lot of confidence in Louisville that there are businesses who want to open and who think they have a good product or service to sell. So the overall economy, while we didn't take the dip overall that we thought we would, the small business hospitality workers are the people who suffered the most. And unemployment did come through for them, but we're still trying to make sure that now that downtown's opening up a little bit, employees are coming back. I'm in my office. I want to be able to go out and get a cup of coffee or lunch during the day, that there are enough workers to help these small businesses actually be open. And that's our next challenge. And when we're seeing that, it's kind of the next piece of the puzzle that we're trying to help solve.
Yeah, actually, that's again another great segue, because and I'll just have you follow up a little bit on this, Rebecca, first, and then I'll bounce it over to Carlos. But with remote working, we're going to see that, and we have a number of large businesses here, so not just our small business, but large businesses that have 100 or more employees that are now working from home and may not necessarily return back. Some of our businesses are seeing that that is a better model for them. And so, but then how do we get to that space of returning those or filling those empty office buildings and, returning back to what that looked like before?
Well, first, I would like to say right here, I do think it's better to be working in person. I think that the creative collisions that happen between people when you're on your way to lunch and you see somebody else, when you're on your way to a meeting, even just in the hallway in your own building, just there are things that happen organically that cannot happen when everyone's in their own living room or bedroom working. There's energy. We actually put off energy. And when, if I were to lose that in my job, I think we would all lose productivity and interesting things in what we do in our jobs. That's just Rebecca saying that. I do think that business models are changing. It has become clear that we can work remotely. Again, I don't think it's the best model, but if people are looking at the bottom line, you can save money on rent or lease based on chairs that you have. And I've heard a couple of different companies talk about desk sharing, staggering schedules, or they are coming back full time. And so it's kind of all over the place. It will change. There's a zero question that it will look different and there will be a different amount of people on the street. To your question about the reusing of space, that is a big concern. Louisville wasn't in great shape pre-pandemic with our office towers. So we really want to pay attention to how can we be creative in the reuse of that space. And that is part of the work that this downtown revitalization team is working on. It will take money. And I'm hoping that some of the federal stimulus money can go towards this. But I'm thinking about if I actually do come to work in a tower, what would I like to see? I'd like a daycare. Not that I have little kids anymore, but if that were something that would be helpful for people to feel like they could come back to work more easily. A gym, I might actually work out more. Co-working spaces, I think we can get some creative spaces that would be more interesting for smaller businesses and startups. And I also think that we are talking about where we can have maker spaces that retailers on the first floor spaces, retailers, just make it up. Like, what's your dream? Like, go in and like have a hackathon or, tinker around and start making things. And again, that creative collision that happens when you're with people and you start talking about what's interesting to you.
Great. Thank you, Rebecca. Carlos, have you and Keto thought about how you're going to fill in those empty office buildings? I mean, I'm assuming that is also a problem for Keto Downtown. Yeah,
and it's not a problem since the pandemic. It's a problem of the last 10 years.
Yeah.
We were trying to make people return and live inside downtown, but you don't have enough safety around your your new house, let's say, or your new apartment inside the downtown. So it's not so attractive for them, for people to go and live back in downtown, even though you have reconstructed houses and apartments. But what it began to function is that we were trying to make international embassies buy or rent downtown houses so they can function inside the downtown. But and that's why we began talking about getting out the White House. The name of our White House is Carondelet's Palace, which is the president's house. We are trying to make it to get out the president from downtown, because if you are living or you are working or you are a diplomat having your office inside downtown, and 3 to 4 to 6 times a year you have problems to get in or to get out because of a strike, you don't have any conditions to think in staying inside the downtown. So we have that problem is not easy to solve, this big problem of having these political actors inside downtown. And yeah, we have different realities. Right now we don't have a very collaborative government. We are dollarized, but we don't have the printing machine. So that's a problem for us. And the other thing is that we don't have enough money, for example, in Ecuador right now to make a massive vaccination program. And that's a huge problem right now, because you don't get into the 3 or 4% of the entire population to get the vaccine. We have a lot of problems of corruption around the vaccination programs, and that's why also the downtown and the entire economy of the country is not in good condition to reactivate sustainably in time.
Mm-hmm. And does Quito downtown struggle with increased number of homelessness? Is that a problem for Quito too? And if so, are there any resources or projects that you're currently working on to address that?
Yeah, we have a lot of homeless. We have a lot of drug problems inside the downtown, and that's why it's so difficult to reactivate the Quito downtown. And that's why programs like the one I told you, to make people that feeling of belonging of the downtown and go back to downtown, it's not only based in 1 square, but at least in 9 squares, so we can reconstruct all the culture around all those 9 squares, because we need to make people think that they have an option of working to get out of poverty, and not getting every time more inside poverty because of robbery and because of drugs and all those problems that, yeah, we have them in Quito downtown.
Yeah, thank you, Carlos. And Rebecca, do you want to address that real quickly, and then we'll let Samantha ask some audience questions.
Oh, can you repeat exactly
Sure.
what? Sorry.
Sure, no. It was around homelessness, and what is Louisville? Are there any resources and projects that are currently underway to address the homelessness in our city centers?
Yes, and this, just like Carlos was saying, is definitely something that's such a priority in terms of humanely dealing with people. And some of them, so we're going to talk about homeless, but we also talk about street behavior, because not everybody on the street is homeless. And that is a big distinction that we are careful to make. We do have social services reaching out to our homeless populations. Because of CDC guidelines, we are not able to clear camps where they are. So right now you will see tents popped up on sidewalks, which is not legal, but we are not enforcing clearing any of that out, because we do not want to help spread COVID. We have taken, had vaccination efforts with our homeless population. And those have been successful from what I can tell. We also want to make sure that they are living in clean and sanitary situations. So we do clean the areas where they are. So we say move across the street, we hose down, clean, sanitize areas, but we are not clearing them. In the meantime, we're also trying to work on funding. It will be some federal funding, and we're hoping to use some of our stimulus funding for additional homeless outreach services and housing. So we're looking at some temporary housing solutions. I just think it's going to take public-private partnerships. We're going to be creative. It's something that's never been done before that's going to help, because right now with people that with the lack of pedestrian activity in downtown, what people are seeing is they think that the homeless population has ballooned, and that isn't the case. It's just that you don't see anybody else or as much, I should say. And so what we're trying to do is just put it's really highlighted this population and the needs and how woefully underfunded federally at every level these services have been. And we are trying to first provide services, and then the bigger elephant is how we can provide temporary housing solutions.
Absolutely.
And maybe permanent, but that's going to take a lot of us working on that together.
Absolutely. Thank you. Appreciate that.
Thank you all. I'll pop back in now to facilitate some of our audience Q&A. We've had a couple come in. And the first one is from Gloria, and it's directed primarily towards Carlos. It says, revitalization must include education, like the school systems, as part of the health of a city or nation. How has Quito worked with their education systems to boost revitalization?
Well, as Chamber of Commerce, we have a very interesting campaign called Honestidad Criolla. I don't know how to translate that, but it's it's projected to be the new way the children and young people accept that being honest is the only way to make business. And those programs, we are beginning to make some capacitations, let's say, from the youngest people in downtown, so they begin with this honest and ethics and moral academic inputs from the beginning, so they can change the way that we make businesses, not only in downtown, but in the entire country. So yeah, I agree that education is very important for all revitalization program. And we are working with this Honestidad Criolla program since 2 years ago, capacitating all children and young people in downtown that used to live in downtown. Yeah.
That's great. Rebecca, is there any counterpart in Louisville?
Yeah, I wasn't sure from Gloria's question if she knows about what we're doing in Louisville, but I do think that it's important to note that JCPS, that's our largest, it's our public school district, is very keen on using government stimulus money. Sorry, I couldn't think of the word. Stimulus money for investment in their facilities and programs. And we have partnered with them on a couple of tech programs to try to get into the high school programs and now into middle schools, which I do think will help the longevity of our economic health by creating a workforce pipeline that can fill jobs that we know are open and going wanted by local companies. We're talking to our education partners all the time, higher ed as well, about how we can partner in terms of not only workforce pipeline. That's a big part of where I sit and work on with both JCPS and higher ed. but also in terms of innovation and spinning out R&D for new companies and creating more economic development.
Great, thank you. Our next question is from Sarah. It was pre-sent when she registered, and it's asking about bicycling and pedestrian initiatives. She is from Louisville, so I'm assuming she's talking about the ones here in Louisville. And what has been your experience with some members of our community that are skeptical of pedestrian and bicycling initiatives? Rebecca, if you want to take a stab at that one first.
Sure. All right, so I'm over economic development. My co-chief is over the built environment, develop Louisville. This is more in his wheelhouse, but I know a little bit, I know enough to be dangerous. So I will start the answer for Sarah. Really bicycling, and we call them scooter, walking lanes, bicycling lanes. All of that is very important in terms of infrastructure because you want there to be a calming sense of safety, that cars are not overtaking the road, that there are various ways that people can get around. And for us to be able to support that, encourage it, create modes that make it possible are definitely our priority. Our mayor has been chastised, called Mayor McBike Lane, as if it's a bad thing. It is something that we hear, especially for our talent attraction efforts, is very wanted, and we don't have enough of them. So we do want to create more miles of those lanes that are for alternative transportation, especially as we're talking about working on saving Mother Earth and helping reduce vehicular miles traveled and emissions and that kind of thing. We have a public transportation system. It's a bus. We don't have light rail or subway, anything like that. And so we are limited in what we can provide right now. But so I do think if Sarah if she's here and she could tell us whether or not that hesitancy question was about should there be more or people don't feel safe, I think that would be good for me to understand.
Yeah, that might pop up in the chat. But since you mentioned subway, Carlos, has there been any pushback in Quito to the construction of a subway?
No, I think people is not very interested in that, and it's been so long since we began constructing the metro line in Quito that now, like 4 or 5 years from the beginning, from the first stone we put it, now all people is like focused on COVID, on the economy, and not in the inauguration of the metro. That it's supposed to be like 2 years ago, the inauguration, and it doesn't happen. So I think people it's skeptical from the metro line to work as it works in other cities, very, very, very good. But now in Quito, I think we don't have much expectations about the functioning of metro line.
I can tell you as a Louisville resident, I am very jealous of your subway, even if it has taken many years. And I'll wrap up our audience Q&A with one of the last pre-sent questions from Stephen. And this is for both of you. I really like this question. How can I, as a regular community member, so maybe someone who doesn't really have a stake downtown, help downtown? So how can I, as a regular community member, help downtown? Rebecca, I'll toss this to you first.
Show up would be my number one piece of advice. I think that if you want to help, so Carlos, we can mind meld here. If you want to help, I think sharing messages, supporting that effort. If you have social media, get yourself out there. If you are able to be downtown and help with cleanups, we're doing some cleanups right now. It's Brightside. Or it's springtime cleaning. Brightside has some organized cleanups, and you can join our team if you want. We have a month left in it. I'm happy to add you to our revitalization team. We're in committees. If you've got great ideas and you don't want to be on that team, you can just send them to me. I'm happy to put my email into the chat. But I think being intentional about effort and standing up for it. I mean, I think the the messaging is the most important. The more people that talk about it, the more people that support it, the more it's heard and that catches on. Because right now we're still fighting media reports from last May, and I don't think that's fair.
That's a good point, Rebecca. Carlos, what do you have to say?
Nothing to say. No. Yeah, I will just add 2 phrases. Show up and read more, because what you don't know, you can't love. But when you read more about your downtown, you'll get in love with it, and then you'll visit it more. And visiting, it's revitalizing your downtown.
Fantastic. Carlos, I think you've been an excellent ambassador for Quito. I think many people in our attendee list are very interested in Quito and its downtown right now. I want to thank everyone who has submitted questions. We're sadly running out of time. I want to thank Carlos and Rebecca for sharing your thoughts on downtown revitalization today. And we are especially grateful to Sabine and the Metro Office for Globalization for their support. A quick reminder that the World Affairs Council provides virtual programs nearly every week. Our signature speaker series is also virtual and features national experts, authors, and diplomats discussing current global issues. Our May speaker series is about to be announced, so keep an ear out for that. More information can be found on our website, which is worldkentucky.org. I hope you will join us and consider supporting WAC as a member. Thank you all for being here. Thank you to our panelist and moderator. Please, everyone, stay happy and healthy. Happy Derby Week, and we will see you next time. Bye-bye.